My wife left me to die alone, but when I was reborn, I chose her sister instead. In the 10th year of our marriage, Victoria finally achieved what she had always wanted: the death of the only person standing in the way of her happiness. Me. While she celebrated our inheritance with Marcus in the penthouse I'd bought for her, I died alone in a cold hospital bed. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day of our arranged marriage. This time, I didn't hesitate. I rejected Victoria and chose her younger sister. It all started 15 years ago, when I was still a naive young heir to Morrison Enterprises. My father had just died in a car accident, leaving me at 22 with the responsibility of managing a billion-dollar empire. That's when I met Marcus Chen at Harvard University. He was a brilliant student from humble origins, a full scholarship recipient who worked 3 jobs to support himself. I felt sorry for him and offered him a position at my company after graduation. "David, you're my savior," Marcus said, gripping my hand with tears in his eyes. "I swear I'll never disappoint you." How naive I was. Back then, I truly believed that kindness generated kindness. But Marcus only smiled falsely, while already planning how to use my generosity against me. The Sterling family had controlled the political and diplomatic sector for 3 generations. When my grandfather suggested an arranged marriage between our families, I immediately thought of Victoria. She was 19 at the time, with platinum blonde hair, ice blue eyes, and beauty that made men stop in the street to look at her. During our first arranged meeting at a 5-star restaurant, Victoria barely looked at me. She was busy typing on her phone, probably talking to other more interesting suitors. "David Morrison," she said without lifting her eyes. "I heard you inherited your father's company. How much exactly is Morrison Enterprises worth?" Her first question to me wasn't about my interests, dreams, or personality. It was about money. "Elena, come greet David," Victoria called her younger sister, who was sitting alone in the corner of the restaurant reading a medical book. Elena was 17 at the time, with natural auburn hair and warm brown eyes. When she approached to greet me, I noticed her hands had small cuts from studying anatomy with cadavers. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Morrison," Elena said gently, with a genuine smile. "I heard your company is developing innovative medical technology. That must save many lives." It was the first time someone mentioned the social impact of our business, not just profit. But I was so focused on impressing Victoria that I barely paid attention to Elena. During our 2-year engagement, Victoria and I appeared together at all important social events. She was always stunning, always knew exactly what to say to impress investors and politicians. I thought I was building a marriage based on partnership and mutual admiration. What I didn't know was that during those same 2 years, Victoria was secretly meeting with Marcus on weekends. "David is working again," Victoria would say on the phone when she thought I wasn't listening. "Yes, Marcus, of course I can meet you at the hotel." I heard these conversations, but my mind always made excuses. Maybe it was about some work project. Maybe Marcus was helping her plan some surprise for me. The night before our wedding, I was reviewing the final contracts in my office when Elena appeared at the door. She was wearing a simple blue dress and carrying a small wrapped box. "David, may I speak with you for a moment?" she asked, hesitantly. "I wanted to give you this," she said, handing me the box. "It's an early wedding gift." Inside the box was a simple but elegant wristwatch, clearly chosen with great care. On the back was engraved, "For David. May you always have time for true happiness. Elena." "David, may I ask you a very personal question?" Elena looked directly into my eyes. "Do you really love my sister, or do you love the idea of her?" The question caught me completely off guard. That night, I lay awake, thinking about Elena's words. Was she right? But it was too late to question. The preparations were ready. Guests would arrive in a few hours. The first 5 years of marriage were a perfect illusion. Victoria and I were high society's golden couple. She managed our social events with impeccable elegance while I expanded business internationally. But behind closed doors, our relationship was cold and distant. Victoria rarely showed genuine affection. Our kisses were mechanical, our hugs lasted only long enough for photos. She had her own wing in the mansion, and I had mine. When I tried to plan romantic dinners or trips for 2, Victoria always made excuses: important meetings, unavoidable social commitments, mysterious headaches. "David, You need to understand that I'm not a very affectionate person, Victoria said one night. Some people show love through actions, not words. I take care of our social image, manage our domestic life, support your career publicly. Isn't that enough love for you? Her words made sense rationally, but my heart always felt empty. Meanwhile, Marcus prospered at Morrison Enterprises. I promoted him quickly through executive positions, impressed by his intelligence and apparent dedication. David, you're a natural leader, Marcus said frequently. The company has never been in better hands. What I didn't realize was that he was using this privileged access to copy confidential information and pass it to competitors. During this period, Elena graduated from medical school and began her pediatric residency. Occasionally she appeared at family dinners, always quiet, always polite, always genuinely interested in how I was doing. "How are the new hospitals you're building?" she would ask. And I realized she really wanted to hear the answer. "Actually, we're facing some challenges with technology implementation," I would respond, and Elena would lean forward, paying full attention. "The problem is balancing operational costs with accessibility for low-income families. Have you considered partnerships with medical schools?" Elena would suggest. "Resident students could provide supervised care at reduced costs while gaining valuable practical experience." Her suggestions were always practical and compassionate, focused on actually helping people, not just maximizing profits. In the 6th year of marriage, I began to feel frequent headaches. Initially, I ignored them, attributing it to work stress. But the pain intensified, accompanied by nausea and blurred vision. Victoria insisted on accompanying me to all medical appointments. "Obviously, I'm going to take care of my husband," she declared publicly, earning media praise as the dedicated wife of the year. "Dr. Matthews, what exactly is the diagnosis?" Victoria asked the oncologist, holding my hand for the cameras she had summoned to document my courageous journey against cancer. "It's a rare brain tumor, but treatable with appropriate therapy," Dr. Matthews explained. "With aggressive chemotherapy and possible surgery, the chances of complete recovery are approximately 70%. "And how much will the treatment cost?" Victoria asked immediately. "About $500,000 over the next 2 years, the doctor replied. Victoria smiled for the cameras. "Obviously, we'll do whatever is necessary. Money is not a concern when it comes to my beloved husband's life." But that night, at home, her attitude changed completely. "David, we need to talk about the financial implications of your illness," Victoria said coldly. $500,000 is a significant amount, even for us." "Victoria, it's my life at stake," I replied, shocked by her coldness. "I'm being practical," she retorted. "If you die, I inherit everything anyway. If you spend $500,000 on treatment and die, that's just wasted money." "David, I found the best specialist in experimental medications," Victoria announced a few days later. "Dr. Richardson has developed a revolutionary protocol that's much more effective than traditional chemotherapy." She handed me a box of blue pills. "He said you should take 2 a day, morning and night, without fail." "But Dr. Matthews said I should start chemotherapy next week," I protested. "Dr. Richardson is much more specialized," Victoria insisted. "Trust me, David. This treatment will cure you without the horrible side effects of chemo." For 3 years, I religiously took the blue pills Victoria gave me. Slowly, my condition worsened. The headaches intensified, my vision became more blurred, my weight decreased drastically. "It's normal," Victoria assured me. "Dr. Richardson said the treatment gets worse before it gets better." During this period, I noticed that Marcus and Victoria spent more time together. "Marcus is helping me research alternative treatments," Victoria explained when I questioned. Sometimes I heard them talking quietly in the office, stopping abruptly when I entered. "How was David responding to the special treatment?" I heard Marcus asking one night. "Better than we expected," Victoria replied with a laugh. "Dr. Richardson said it could take up to 5 years, but the results will be definitive." During this period, Elena tried to visit me several times. "David, you look very pale," she said during a family dinner, studying my face with professional medical concern. "Your eyes are yellowed. That's not normal for brain tumor treatment." "Elena, you're a pediatrician, not an oncologist," Victoria interrupted sharply. "David is receiving the best possible care. Your concern is unnecessary and stressful for him." "Can I see your most recent test results?" Elena asked me directly. As a doctor, maybe I can offer a second opinion. The results are confidential, Victoria replied before I could speak. In the 9th year of my illness, I began to suspect something was wrong. I researched Dr. Richardson online and found no information about him at respectable medical institutions. That night, when Victoria was sleeping, I managed to gather enough energy to examine the pills she gave me. Using a magnifying glass, I read the tiny inscription, Centrum Silver, multivitamin for seniors. My blood ran cold. I confronted Victoria the next morning. You've been giving me multivitamins instead of cancer medication, I accused. Victoria didn't deny it. Her face assumed a cold expression I had never seen before. David, you've always been too naive for business. Sometimes difficult decisions need to be made for the greater good. The greater good? I screamed. You're deliberately killing me. I'm freeing you from a life of suffering, Victoria replied calmly, and I'm ensuring our company continues to prosper under competent leadership. Marcus and I have much better plans for Morrison Enterprises than you ever had. How long? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Since the beginning, Victoria admitted. Did you really think I would marry you for love? Please, David. You were a means to an end. A very lucrative end. That night, lying alone in the hospital room that had become my prison, I heard Victoria and Marcus celebrating in the hallway. Tomorrow we'll officially own Morrison Enterprises, Marcus said, toasting with champagne. 10 years of planning, finally, coming to an end. And David will die believing we were the only ones who cared about him, Victoria laughed. How ironic. The richest man in the city died alone and betrayed, never realizing that the only person who truly loved him was that insignificant little sister. My last tears were of regret. Elena. How blind I was not to see that Elena had always loved me genuinely, while I wasted 10 years chasing a cruel illusion. I died with the sound of Victoria's laughter echoing through the empty corridors. But when the darkness lifted, I was wearing a black tuxedo, standing at the altar of Sterling Church. My heart raced when I realized where I was. The priest was asking, David Morrison, do you take Victoria Sterling to be your wife? It was June 15th, 2010. The day of my original wedding. Somehow, inexplicably, I had gone back in time. 10 years of painful memories flooded my mind. The loveless marriage, the slow betrayal, the fake vitamins, the lonely death. But this time, I knew exactly what to do. This time, I wouldn't be the naive man who believed in illusions. I looked directly into Victoria's confident eyes and spoke clearly for the entire church to hear. No. The silence was absolutely deafening. 300 high society guests were in total shock. Victoria blinked several times, as if she had heard wrong. Her confident smile slowly disappeared, replaced by genuine confusion. David? She whispered, still not believing. What did you say? I said no, Victoria Sterling. I do not accept this marriage. My voice echoed through the ornate church, each word clear and deliberate. Mr. Sterling, I turned to the family patriarch in the front row. I respectfully request permission to court your younger daughter, Elena Sterling. The church exploded in shocked murmurs. Elena looked up, completely stunned, her medical book falling from her hands. Victoria grabbed my arm with desperate force. David, have you completely lost your mind? We have an agreement. Our families signed contracts. Yes, we do, I replied calmly. But contracts can be modified when we discover relevant information that fundamentally alters the original terms. I looked directly at Mr. Sterling. The contract specifies marriage with a Sterling daughter to unite our families. It never specified which daughter. Marcus, who was standing as my best man, whispered furiously in my ear, David, what the hell are you doing? Victoria is the official heiress. I smiled coldly at Marcus. Marcus, interesting how you always know so much about the Sterling family's power structure. Almost as if you had access to privileged information about their internal business. How about the detailed plans you two made to take control of Morrison Enterprises after our marriage? I pulled out my phone. I have here emails dated 3 years ago discussing strategies to remove David from the equation once the matrimonial contracts are secure. Elena slowly stood up, walking toward me to see the phone. Her trained medical eyes quickly read the messages, widening with each line. "Victoria," Elena said quietly, her voice trembling. "These emails. Did you really plan to betray David from the beginning?" "Elena, you don't understand business," Victoria exploded, losing all composure. "David is rich, but he has no strategic vision. Marcus and I could build a true empire." "An empire built on betrayal and murder," I murmured, letting the word murder float in the air. "Victoria, can you tell me which hospital I was born in?" I asked calmly. She hesitated. What kind of stupid question is that?" "Elena?" I asked, turning to the younger sister. "St. Mary's Memorial Hospital, West Wing," Elena replied immediately without hesitation. "You were born premature at 32 weeks, which is why you have that small scar on your left wrist where the incubator was." Victoria stared at me, realizing she had lost something fundamental. "Elena," I said gently, taking her hand, "would you give me the honor of being my wife?" Elena looked between me and Victoria, clearly torn. "David, you've always loved Victoria. Everyone in this city knows that." "I thought I loved," I corrected. "But true love is based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care. Not on appearances or social status." I looked into Elena's warm brown eyes. "You were the only person who cared about my personal happiness, not just my economic value." Elena took a deep breath. "Yes, David Morrison, I accept." The church exploded in absolute chaos. Victoria screamed like a possessed woman while Marcus lunged forward as if to physically attack me, but Mr. Sterling quickly signaled to security. "Remove these two from my church, immediately." While Victoria was escorted out by security guards, she screamed desperately, "David Morrison, you just signed your death warrant." "Actually," Mr. Sterling announced for all 300 guests to hear, "Elena will officially inherit all contracts and holdings of Sterling Enterprises. Victoria is being officially disinherited as of this moment." 3 hours later, Elena and I were back at the altar. This time, when the priest asked if I accepted her as my wife, I responded with total conviction, "Yes." Our first kiss as husband and wife was soft, respectful, full of promise. There wasn't the explosive fake passion I had pretended to feel for Victoria, but there was something much more precious. Genuine affection, mutual respect, and the foundation of a true partnership. In the following months, the consequences of Victoria and Marcus's actions began to unfold publicly. They tried to open a consulting company using contacts and information they had acquired through their privileged positions. Mr. Sterling immediately sued them for theft of intellectual property. The case became front-page news for weeks. Marcus, facing potential criminal charges for corporate espionage, eventually confessed in detail about the entire conspiracy. "Victoria approached me during our second year at Harvard," he testified. "She said David was weak and naive, and that together we could build something much bigger than he ever could." The verdict was swift and decisive. Marcus was sentenced to 15 years in prison for corporate espionage, fraud, and conspiracy. Victoria, as the primary architect of the scheme, received 25 years. Meanwhile, Elena and I were busy revolutionizing Morrison Enterprises. She had been right about using medical school partnerships to reduce healthcare costs. Our first pilot program was extraordinarily successful. "David, look at these statistics." Elena excitedly showed me reports 6 months after our marriage. "We've treated over 3,000 patients who previously had no access to specialized care. Our success attracted international attention. Elena was invited to present our work at a World Health Organization conference." Watching Elena speak confidently to an audience of hundreds of medical professionals, I realized how much she had blossomed since our marriage. 1 year after our marriage, while Elena was caring for a young patient in our newest hospital, I watched her through an observation window and felt overwhelming gratitude. Victoria had been beautiful, ambitious, sophisticated. But Elena was kind, intelligent, dedicated. "How are you feeling?" Elena asked when she noticed me watching. "Grateful," I answered honestly. "Immensely grateful." She smiled, touching my face tenderly. You seem like you went through something terrible before choosing to stay with me. Whatever it was, I'm glad you found your way to me." "Elena," I said, pulling her closer, "what would you think about expanding our family?" Her eyes lit up with joy. "You mean, I want to have children with you. Want to build a family based on genuine love and mutual respect." 2 years later, when our first child was born, a daughter we named Hope, Elena held her gently while looking at me with pure love. "She's perfect," Elena whispered. "Just like her mother," I replied. But our happiness was tested when Victoria was released early from prison. She appeared at our hospital, causing a disturbance in the pediatric ward. In her desperation and rage, she grabbed a scalpel from a medical tray. "If I can't have you, then she can't either." Without thinking, I threw myself between them. The scalpel meant for Elena's face caught me across the shoulder instead. As Elena treated my wound, Victoria was arrested again, this time receiving an additional 10 years. Years passed. Elena won the Nobel Prize for her medical innovations. Our children, Hope and Daniel, grew up seeing what real partnership looked like. Victoria eventually tried one last time to contact me, sending a letter from prison. My reply was simple. "Victoria, I hope you find the peace and happiness you're looking for. But you'll find it by building something new, not by trying to reclaim something that was never really yours." Decades later, as Elena and I sat on our porch watching our grandchildren play, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. In my first life, I had died alone, betrayed by the woman I thought I loved. In this life, I had found a woman who loved me not for what I could give her, but for who I was when I was with her. Sometimes, the second chance we receive isn't about fixing the same mistakes, but about making completely different choices. And choosing Elena Sterling had been the best decision of my life, in this timeline and forever. The Morrison Sterling Foundation had become one of the most respected humanitarian organizations globally. Elena had won her Nobel Prize and was considered one of the leading medical innovators of her generation. Our children were healthy, happy, and already showing signs of inheriting their mother's compassionate nature. Victoria tried once more to contact me, sending a letter through her lawyer. "David, I've changed. I understand now what real love means. Please give me one more chance to prove that I can be the woman you need." I showed the letter to Elena, who read it thoughtfully before speaking. "What do you want to do?" "I want to respond," I said, "but not in the way she expects." My reply was simple. "Victoria, I hope you find the peace and happiness you're looking for, but you'll find it by building something new, not by trying to reclaim something that was never really yours. I wish you well. David." I never heard from her again. Some stories end with dramatic confrontations and grand gestures. Ours ended with quiet contentment and the knowledge that love, when it's real, doesn't need to be fought for. It simply is. When Victoria was finally released from prison years later, she found a different world waiting for her. The Morrison Sterling Foundation had become a global force for good. Elena was internationally recognized as a pioneer in accessible healthcare. Our children had grown into compassionate leaders in their own right. Hope had followed her mother's footsteps into medicine, specializing in pediatric surgery. Daniel had taken over the business side of our foundation, expanding our reach to underserved communities worldwide. Our grandchildren were already showing the same compassionate spirit that had defined our family. Victoria could only watch from the outside as the life she had thrown away flourished without her. The contrast was stark. Where manipulation and greed had led to isolation and regret, love and partnership had created a legacy of healing and hope. Even in her 70s, Elena continued to work part-time at our hospitals, mentoring young doctors and never losing her passion for healing. I supported her every step of the way, just as she had supported me. We had become true partners in every sense of the word, equal, supportive, and deeply in love. On the day Elena treated her last patient before full retirement, the entire hospital staff gathered to honor her. She received a standing ovation that lasted for 10 minutes. Through her tears of joy, she looked at me in the audience and smiled. The pride and love I felt in that moment was indescribable. That evening, we sat on our porch watching the sunset, as we had done countless times before. Our hands were weathered now, marked by age and years of caring for others, but they fit together perfectly. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been given that second chance? Elena asked softly. I think about it sometimes, I replied. But then I look at you, at our children, at everything we've built together, and I realize that some questions don't need answers. This moment, this life, this love, it's perfect exactly as it is. Elena smiled and leaned against my shoulder. I love you, David Morrison. And I love you, Elena Morrison. Always and forever. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, we sat in comfortable silence. The peace that surrounded us was complete. In the distance, we could hear the laughter of our grandchildren playing in the garden. The sound filled us with hope for the future. Our legacy would live on through them, through the foundation, through all the lives we had touched. But most importantly, it would live on through the simple truth we had discovered. That true love is not about finding the perfect person, but about choosing to love the right person perfectly. Sometimes the universe gives us second chances not to fix our mistakes, but to make entirely different choices. I was grateful beyond words that I had been given the wisdom to choose love over illusion, compassion over ambition, and Elena over everyone else. Elena sighed contentedly. Let's go inside, she said. Home is calling. Hand in hand, we rose from our chairs and walked toward the warm light spilling from our front door. Before stepping inside, I turned back for one last look at the garden where so many precious memories had been made. The circle was complete. The door closed softly behind us. Inside, the house glowed with golden light and the warmth of a life well lived. Sometimes the greatest victory is not in conquering your enemies, but in choosing to love the right person from the very beginning. Loved this story of rebirth and true love? Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more amazing stories. Write in the comments, which part moved you the most? See you in the next story.